Hey, this is Matt. Once again, we're back to another review. There's another paid request, this time for Manuel. Thank you so much for that. And for those interested in requesting pretty much any type of videos or topics, reactions, reviews, re-reviews, commentaries, randomness, out of the blueness, whatever it may be, feel free to send it. Either you can join my Patreon, or you can send it through my PayPal, and the links are down below in the info box below the video. And we're talking about Back to the Future. Now, Back to the Future, absolute classic from 1985. And, I mean, to talk about the backstory, to talk about the impact, I mean, it's been talked about so much, it's like, well, what more can be said about this film? What makes this film work? What makes the film work is that you take an idea, but in a way you make it relatable to a good point of the general audience. Meaning, you take a time travel aspect, but then you give the relatability of what if you could see your parents, but it's a time where your parents were your same age. Would you connect with your parents? Would it be total opposites? And also about how fate can be changed. How in a way you can make your own fate. Because when Marty McFly, things weren't going the best, the family life wasn't going the best, the mother was a bit of a drunk, the dad had never stood up for himself, no confidence, and how inadvertently, through this time travel adventure, he's able to make his life better. Not just richer, but better. His parents are happier, and it's kind of I would say, a feel-good story in that aspect of living vicariously through a movie, a fantasy, that maybe things are not going the best in your life, or things could be better in the home life, and man, if I went on this adventure and was able to change things, and whether you call it giving people a second chance or whatever, and then how things could get better. I think there's people that could live vicariously through that. But also it's just entertaining because the actors do their jobs well. Michael J. Fox was perfect, Marty McFly, and this is a time where he was juggling Family Ties TV show and this movie at the same time. And of course I have to go into the fact that he was not the guy they wanted him. Robert Zemeckis, who directed, who had done Romancing the Stone, Steven Spielberg, who was producing it. They wanted Michael J. Fox, but the TV guys went, no, he's on this TV show. And then there's this film he's doing called Teen Wolf. And then other aspects just, even though Michael wanted to do it, they're like, nah. I'm trying to remember the details as to why they did not let him do that film, but they did let him do Teen Wolf. I'm trying to remember the exact details. And I think my neighbor's rooster asked him the same question. So they went all on and hired Eric Stoltz. Now Eric Stoltz, he was in the film called Mask with Cher. He would be in The Fly 2. He was in Anaconda. And if I understand, number one, they did a good chunk of that movie. And the reason I'm bumbling my words, it's dumbfounding when you think about this. It's rare. Not never, as in it never happens, but it's very, very rare that you have a film that shoots for that long a time. It shot, I don't know if it was 3 weeks. I mean, they shot a good chunk of that movie with Eric Stoltz. I bet if you're able to get all that footage, you could probably edit a movie where it starred Eric Stoltz. At least a good chunk of it. In fact, that's something I'm surprised they haven't done in like a Back to the Future re-release. And sorry, my body literally just went boom. So I apologize for that. My body was even dumbfounded. I'm talking about my mind being dumbfounded. My body just said, fuck it, I'm dumbfounded too, and wanted to introduce himself to you. even they're discombobulated with how studios like to make money with special editions and re-releases and anniversary editions. The fact no one said, let's take that and let's edit a different version, there would be people who would buy it just to see that. I guarantee you, and my neighbor's rooster, again, he agrees. He confirms that. People would buy it. Maybe not everybody, but there would be people that I won't buy this because I'm curious to see this cut of the film. Because curiosity is a big incentive for fans, especially a film and a trilogy that was this popular. But Eric Stoltz didn't work out. They looked at the footage. They were not getting the laughs. They were not getting the right feel. I know some people did not like working with him, like Thomas F. Wilson, who played Biff. He did not like working with Eric Stoltz. Because there's a bit like they're supposed to be struggling, and Eric was being a bit too forceful. And Tom was like, hey, can you ease up? Okay, and he still kept doing it. And Thomas F. Wilson's like, okay, I'm going to get him back. And by the time he wanted to get him back, Eric Stoltz was gone. They said, oh, this is, you hear stories, he took himself too seriously. Eric Stoltz was a method actor. He only wanted you to call him by his character name. That stupid shit. So it seemed like more people enjoyed working with Michael J. Fox than Eric Stoltz. Which I find ironic that Eric Stoltz went through all that trouble to be a method actor and to be this and that, and yet he still got pretty much fired. I mean, there's no other way to sugarcoat it. He got fired. They said, you were not good enough. They can sugarcoat all they want. You were not good enough. You're not the right guy. Goodbye. Now, I don't know if he still got paid. I would assume so. Then they finally got Michael J. Fox. And Michael J. Fox was definitely the better choice. Eric Stoltz is an iffy actor to me. Take or leave him. Like, The Fly 2 I enjoy. I don't mind Eric Stoltz, but I always thought it'd be better if it was like James Spader in that role instead of Eric Stoltz in The Fly 2. Like, if you had James Spader in that role, I think it would have been even better. But Michael J. Fox just has that likability, that nice guy quality, that charm. He plays humor well, but he can do drama, as he showcased in Casualties of War. He's got good movie star presence, but he's got that boy next door likable charm to him. But it doesn't feel phony or fake. Just a very likable lead, and this is the right part, right actor, right moment, lightning in a bottle. And then Christopher Lloyd. I know there's talks like John Lithgow, but he could not do it. But Christopher Lloyd did the right choice, the manic Doc Brown. Marty! 1.21 kilowatts? What the hell's a kilowatt? And Christopher Lloyd just had a lot of exuberance and energy as Doc Brown, and it was great to see their friendship. Granted, because of circumstances, they're separated for a bit. But that was one of the cool things about Back to the Future Part 2, which I love that sequel, because you got to see even more of the two of them together. Because in the first one, like, after the beginning, Doc Brown doesn't show up for a bit, because he dies, and then he goes back in time, and then he's wondering his surroundings, 1950s, 1955, and then trying to learn the ropes. Oh my god, that's his dad, that's his mom has a crush on him, which is awkward, and all that jazz. And then he eventually gets to Doc Brown. But even then, like, Doc Brown doesn't know him, so it's this kind of weird tangent, this weird friendship, however you want to put it. While it's Back to the Future Part 2 that you get a lot more of them actually, knowing each other, being friends, back and forth. I think as a kid, I always thought Back to the Future Part 2 was my favorite. Nowadays, I would say this one, but at the same time, it still kind of goes back and forth. Like, do I like this one more, or do I like Back to the Future Part 2 more? Because Back to the Future Part 2, I think, is such a unique sequel. And where you go into the future and what the future is like, and then have the idea to go back into the first movie. So you're in 1955, but there's the Marty from the first movie, and then there's the Marty from this movie. I just like its uniqueness as a sequel. So I do quite enjoy that. So again, it goes back and forth. But this one, I mean, it's got a great score by Alan Silvestri that really helps the proceedings of giving this epic feel. Da, 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 da. Again, it just gets your adrenaline pumping and you just along for the ride, and it fits so well in moments that's supposed to be exciting or moments that's supposed to be suspenseful, like will Doc Brown get the tables together at the end so when the lightning hits, and they just had all the right elements. It was a funny film. It's not a big special effects movie, other than when the DeLorean gets... It's really not a lot of effects at all compared to like the second one. Like I say, the idea is interesting. The cast work well. Lea Thompson as the mom, Crispin Glover as the dad, Thomas F. Wilson's Biff, the bully of bullies. Well, him and Billy Zabka, the bully of bullies. What do you want, butthead? Well, you make like a tree and get out of here. Crispin Glover, he's definitely got that unique ticks down. I know there's a big controversy with the second Back to the Future, where Bob Gale said that Crispin Glover wanted the same amount of money that Michael J. Fox was getting. And Crispin Glover says, no, that's a lie. Bob Gale is lying. And then, ultimately, they did another version of Crispin Glover's character who was upside down. It was a different actor. They did try to make look like Crispin Glover. And so Crispin sued them and said, well, wait a minute. You're calling him McFly, George McFly. You made him try to look like me. So to this day, there are still people who think I was in Back to the Future 2. And I did not like that guy's performance. I think he gave a terrible performance. And now that terrible performance is labeled at me because people think I'm in the movie because you try to make the guy look like me and my likeness. So you're using my likeness. And he sued and he won. He got like $700,000. And that's one of the reasons why he never goes to these Back to the Future conventions or meetups. Because... really, like, he patched things up with Robert Zemeckis, because he was in, was it Beowulf? But he still does not like Bob Gale, because in his words, Bob Gale still keeps lying about all this. I don't know, I wasn't there. But, you know, it is what it is. But I still think Crispin Glover did a good job as nerdy guy who Marty has to... almost gets frustrated at points and knows that he's a sci-fi fan and he's an author, and because he inadvertently changed things where now his mom likes him and not the guy who's going to be his dad, he's got to work that out. And there's a lot of moments that just stick out in a good way. There's our first introduction of Doc Brown, what type of character he is, where the camera pans into this room with all of these, plutonium under the bed, all these little things to get the food for the dog, and just visually, what the thing they say is show, don't tell, showing us what kind of guy Doc Brown is. And then Marty McFly, you have the big fucking speaker. That's like, to me, like the first big laugh of the movie. Just how fucking forceful it flies back. The soundtrack, I mentioned the music, but the soundtrack of Huey Lewis. The Power of Love, Back in Time, good songs that work with the soundtrack of this film. It's the power of love. Although I always prefer Back in Time. I always like that song more than Power of Love, but I do like Power of Love, but I always like Back in Time more. Gotta go back in time. Plus, I don't mind Huey Lewis, who does have a cameo as when Michael J. Fox's band tried to get into the show. Huey Lewis, I'm sorry, you're just too darn loud. That's Huey Lewis. His girlfriend, I know the actress has changed. I think the actress's mother had cancer, so she didn't want to come back for the sequel. She was busy doing her personal life, so then they got Elizabeth Shue to do the sequel. Which, yeah, granted, when you watch them back to back, there's a little bit weird continuity, but it can't be helped. It's just how it is. It's a movie. I'm trying to think. There's the bit with the terrorists. Yeah, I mean, it's weird when you always think of Back to the Future. It's like, oh yeah, there were terrorists in this movie. There were terrorists that shoot and kill Doc Brown at the beginning. And the DeLorean itself, I mean, the fact that, the original idea was either, I think at one point it was going to be a refrigerator, or maybe it was like some other type of vehicle. Just such bad ideas. And I think the DeLorean was the best pick. And then also I think there was an ending they were thinking of, that there was going to be like an atomic bomb test, and they would use that to go the 55 mile, like power it. I don't know how the fuck that would even work. Like, you go to an atomic bomb test site, and then I didn't how it worked. Like, somehow, what, the radiation, something, whatever. I thankfully they didn't do that. Because I think a lot of people just been more like, what the fuck? But here it was better because you're still within the town, and you're able to have this connection where Doc Brown gets his moment to shine to help this guy go back to the future, and I think you get more of that suspense. Oh, I get this, he's hanging off the clock, boom, 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 and you have the music rising up, makes for a more exciting finale. But the DeLorean, which that was a car that was a real car. I forget, I mean, the guy's name was DeLorean. I forgot his first name. I think we came to find out he was a drug guy, or he's very heavily in drugs. And the DeLorean kind of went by the wayside as a car. Although I will say one of the dumb things about the DeLorean in real life, it works for the movie, for what kind of, it's being sci-fi. But, the car door popping up like this, that just seems like it would make it a lot harder, because, like a door, you could open up a little bit, but this you'd have to open up a lot further, so that it'd be a lot like, how do I put it, a lot farther out, because sooner or later the top part's going to hit something. Like, imagine you try to get groceries, right? And you park. You open up a car door, maybe this but this, you'd have to open it up, probably scratch the other person's fucking car. It wasn't practical in real life. But for a movie, it's a great visual, and it's distinct. There is no other car like the DeLorean, so it makes that car stick out a lot more. Especially when you get to the second film and it's able to fly, and it just makes it like to stand out a lot more. You see that car, that's Back to the Future. And they don't do a whole lot of that nowadays, which is too bad. It just doesn't seem like there's a lot of movies that have a specific gun or weapon or something that just sticks out. Rambo, C4, explosive arrow, Cobra, the Jatomatic, this, the car. I don't know what it is. Christopher Lloyd, like I say, he has a lot of fun energy. When it's like, Ronald Reagan is the president? Because at this point, they just think of him as an actor. And it's a sweet story. Like how Crispin Glover tries to help out Lea Thompson. And it's a rousing moment when he finally gets that courage and stands up and that guts and just smacks Thomas F. Wilson in the face. And you're like, yeah. You're like Michael J. Fox, like, yeah. At least in the sequel. In the sequel, he's able to see that. And then the Michael J. Fox from the first film pops up over there. But in the second film, and that's what I mean, it was cool, like in the second film, he got to see that moment and go, yeah. Again, that's one of the things that makes the sequel, I think, very unique and entertaining. But going back to this, I should mention, like, the moment where he tries to get Crispin Glover to finally try to go out with Lea Thompson's character. So he puts on the suit. He's like, I'm Lord Vader from the planet Vulcan. Just make all this stuff up to steer the shit out of Crispin Glover. And I said, the whole cast work together. The premise is just an endearing premise. It's got a good heart to it. As all the elements come together. Music, direction, the right actors in the right parts. It's got humor, it's got excitement, it's got a rousing score. All that lightning in the bottle became such of an amount of electricity, 1.21 kilowatts, that it launched this film into pop culture history. Became one of the defining movies of the 80s. And that's a bold statement, but I think it's a fair statement. I think people would not argue that Back to the Future is one of the big defining 80s movies. When you think of 80s movies, Back to the Future pops up. And I like the sequel. The third one, I don't hate the third one. I hate it less than I did when I first saw it. I could watch it. Like, if I watch it now, it wouldn't be a rant. But yeah, it's there. I still like seeing the characters again. I'm just not a big Western guy. There are Westerns I enjoy, but it's just not my preferred genre. But watching it, I'm like, okay, it's fun, and I'm like, okay, it ended a trilogy. And I know Robert Zemeckis and Bob Gale have gone on record stating, we have it in our contracts. We own the film. There will not be a remake as long as we're alive. And you could tell they don't want to do a sequel either. I know Christopher Lloyd at one point said it would be cool to do a sequel. To me, I think Robert Zemeckis and Bob Gale feel the same way. There's no reason to do a sequel. Which is refreshing. Since every other fucking franchise wants to do a sequel, be different. Don't do a sequel. Stick with your trilogy. Be different. And just, it is what it was, and that's it. But yeah, Back to the Future, classic film, classic movie. So, with that said, thanks for watching, take care, and we'll see you guys later. Bye-bye.